you want to go ahead and introduce yourself,
Okay.
if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'm Jeremy, founder of X Tech Tactical, along with two engineers that like to hide behind the curtain, but they're incredibly talented. And yeah, we started the company back in 2013, originally as a think tank to develop products we were going to license and sell to others. And through circumstances outside of our control, I ended up with the only option immediately available to us was start our own brand. So kind of started a publicly facing brand by accident. Our original intention was just to get mailbox money from others and focus on product development. And so uh, yeah, here we are today where the brand's now sold in some national chains like Sportsman's Warehouse out west, Turner's Outdoorsman, hopefully some other big announcements later this year. But yeah, really about a year ago, I made the choice to go full time on this. So for me personally, I always had other things going on, paid our bills other ways. And so we just got to the point where, as I say, we were either going to sell it, kill it or grow it. And so I decided on growing it back in September of 23. And kind of in January of 24 was when I took the steps to kind of go full time with this. So we added 31 new products last year, which I think is pretty insane when you look at a lot of our products are injection molded. So, huge capital investment there. And, this year we're really hyper focused on building out the systems that will allow us to grow and scale rapidly. And finally embracing marketing, so like, being on a podcast like this is, and someone I kind of done selectively historically, but, we're the believers that if we could, we're passionate about making things that are awesome and best in category, but we still wish that people would just find us, right? So that marketing thing, is kind of always been something we ran away from, and now we're more embracing it. So the world will see that more and more. Yeah, I mean, I think what's coolest about us and why our products is, we're active users, and none of us have any epically cool resumes. We support our veterans. None of us served. None of us were even law enforcement. We're just husbands and fathers that believe that when you make something like a magazine, it better dang work, and we stand behind our products in a way that I think no one else in the industry does, and that's what really led to X Tech. We used to make. I used to head up the sales for a couple large manufacturing groups, and we did about a third of the U.S. made plastic parts for guns. And so what spurred me to want to ideate and create what we have now is that mindset that people aren't going to use it, so it doesn't matter. And I think I have a moral issue with that. And so there's companies out there. I'm not here to blast anyone by name, but there's companies out there that make things like magazines, and they know they don't work. And I've had conversations with ownership of some of those companies, and to me that's a moral problem. And their marketing might say best blank, but they know their stuff has major flaws. And so, really for us, it's making the best product we can make every day. Our competition is ourselves. If we see a better way to do it and we can afford it, we do it. So that's really our mindset, is to make something that you can buy today and pass down to your kids and their kids. I can't guarantee something's going to last for 100 years, but we're going to do our damn best to make that happen.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned a podcast because I got this from Arm Atlas.
Yeah, Aaron.
It's funny, and God, I've been wanting to use it so bad. It's just I haven't been able. My schedule's been crazy lately, and I keep looking at it and it keeps reminding me to go to the range. But even if you just hold it, it feels like it's quality. I've got some knockoff magazines where I don't think it starts off with like in this case 5. It's weird. It's like a Korean magazine, so it starts off with a weird number, then it counts down to like I don't know 55 or something. So you're supposed to have 30 in there, but nonetheless, you got to trust in it. But this, especially the spring, because they always tell you to buy the quote unquote the OG manufacturer magazines, but I would not mind spending money on this because it feels just like the factory magazine, and I could definitely trust my firearm with that. So
I mean, really for us, we never touched Glock, and my theory was that our first pistol magazines we ever made were actually for H&K, and then our next magazines we made were for AKs, AK-47s in particular. And my methodology there is where the business is now from a product mix standpoint, and where we're heading is where we always envision going as the premium aftermarket magazine manufacturer. But because of the marketing expense, I'm more passionate about spending dollars on the next product than I am, buying a YouTube video. And we all know how the game's played with the bigger channels. For the most part,
Yeah.
there's some exceptions to every rule. But so, for me, it was like, if I can win over the most hard markets, Heckler and Koch and an AK-47, the core of those markets, those guys are unforgiving as heck. Their standard is way up here, and there's no room for error. So I'm like, if we can win over those guys, which we did, then when we make a Glock magazine and we make a, whatever else it might be behind that, there's some core trust of the foundation, and a lot of AK guys run Glocks because of that utilitarian connection of simplicity and reliability. So that was our thought. And so when we decided to go into Glocks in 23, shortly after I decided to go full time at this, I'm like, I'm going to do it. I want to own it. So that's really where the whole ecosystem now is still maturing. But we've got standard capacity, we've got limited for people in restricted states that you can convert when and if laws change or you move, which we'll jump back to, I'm sure, during this show today. But and then we have the extended magazines coming out, and then the whole line of sleeves. So it's kind of like a whole system, right? It's not just like behind me here, you got kind of our Glock section that's now been put into stores. We're not just trying to make a mag. We're trying to answer every problem that you might have. And so anyway, that's kind of the goal. But when we did it, we wanted to be a little bit better price than factory and a lot better product. And so I'm not sitting here and saying there's anything wrong with Glock factory mags, but I know undeniably we did it better. And so we've got that stronger spring, we've got a better base plate, we've got a better follower. You're going to get a lot more cycles out of our magazines than you will Glock factory. On the flip side, the con on our mags that we do not hide is they are initially significantly harder to load than standard Glock mags. They're not like 365 macro 17 round mag hard to load, but they are, compared to Glock factory, they are going to be harder to load. And the reason for that is a larger gauge spring wire and stainless steel springs and 15% as a whole higher power. But the benefit is you're going to get at least 3x more life out of the spring. So, that's kind of where we came from there.
Yeah, it kind of works for me just fine. I mean, then again, it's a dummy round, but you never know.
Exactly. But when you get to that full capacity, you will notice it, a difference. And that's intentional on our part. We're for longevity. And our core customer isn't the guy who's just like, oh, my thumb hurt because I loaded it. It's a guy who's going, I have a job because I'm a dad, because I'm a husband, because I have family I love. And that job is my stuff needs to work, not how easy is it to load. So, if that's not you, then you want easy to load mags, then, maybe we're not solving a problem for you. But if you care about something lasting and working and being able to pass down generationally, that's what we made this for. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that's actually one quality that's kind of hard to come by in companies nowadays. I mean, not going to call any names out, but I recently bought a plate carrier, and I've had some cheaper kind of third-party brand plate carriers before, and they felt sturdy. This brand name plate carrier almost feels like it's made out of paper mache, and I don't know if I could trust myself with that because, like you said, you want to be able to protect your family, and God forbid something happens, I got to go downstairs with this paper mache plate carrier. I might as well just stick with the third party one I got,
100%. Yeah, that soft good market's funny, man. I mean, there's so many companies out there that pretend that their main customer is not airsoft guys, and that airsoft user wants super lightweight, right? And they want breathable, totally different usage and application. And if you load yourself up with a bunch of BBs, that's a lot lighter than ammo, right? So, but like their marketing's all about like, we build these for Delta Force, but really 90% of their sales are to airsoft guys. And I'm not knocking airsoft guys, but obviously those are different products. I'd almost rather see them make an airsoft line that looks like the real thing, and instead of downgrading to satisfy those guys that want the breathability, lighter weight stuff.
Yeah, true. But then again, that's how you end up getting like those cheap EORec holographic sights. The EOTech knockoff. It's just as good.
That's a wild market. Yeah, we could go on tangent and everything, but yeah, the optics world, man, I just laugh at it. But there are a couple companies out there that embrace the whole like everyone's got the same thing, and other guys pretend that's not true. But I come from a fishing world as a fisherman, and the real world, 90% of the reels and rod blanks are made in one of two factories. Same deal, just different names on them.
That makes sense. Well, on the topic of quality, have you had, or hang on, have any of your products been returned under like any unique circumstances? Like, you've seen videos where I think when the P320 was having issues and people were trying to hit the back of the slide with the hammer, and something along those lines. Has anybody done anything crazy with your mags or anything, your grips, anything?
Well, okay, so first I'll answer the return question. Yeah, I mean, we've seen weird stuff. When you make, the company sits there and goes, I always start with manufacturing. I meet with a new supplier, someone's going to make something for us, and I start with the statement of, my background was really making billions of parts a year. Like the gun world was a very small percentage of what I did. So if you have no problems in manufacturing, you ain't making enough, right? And so, there's always going to be something. And then what we're up against as making aftermarket magazines, or just like even AK mags, it's not technically aftermarket, is change it, if the gun's put together wrong, or there's a change in the gun that's not public, sometimes you end up chasing a rabbit a little bit and having to make adjustments.
Hmm.
So, absolutely, there's times where we ship something out that, we learn from it and we expand our quality procedures to look out for it. But with a lot of our products, they start at our product price range starts at $15 and goes up to about 60. So we're very affordable things. We're not cheap. We're a great value is how we look at our brand, and we're also not luxury. We're premium, right? So we're kind of see ourselves as a Mercedes, if you will, and categorically. But yeah, there's always things that can pop up and weird things you see. I mean, we found two 365s over the last 3 years of selling the extensions that hold open when you still have one round in it using our extension. And we actually bought a pistol from a customer to figure out what's going on, and it just their slide catch was just bent ever so slightly out of spec on SIG side. Now on our when we face that, we give the customer, we solve the problem, figure out what's going on. It's what we always love working with our customers on those because we want to learn. And we figured out if you went back to a SIG factory follower versus our follower, that problem went away. But your trade-off was it was noticeably harder for them to load that extension with it. I mean, so I mean, things happen, and most of our return issues are people not reading instructions, and that's because 90% of our customers are dudes. So if anyone listening this has ever talked to me, they'll account for it on their customer service experiences. If you call me and you say this and this won't go together, or blah blah blah, I always pause and go, hey, can you grab your wife? If you're married, and then they kind of go, what the heck? Why are you talking about my wife? And I go, hey, she'll read the instructions. And I get it. I'm a dude. I don't either. But, a lot of the things we have are patented, and we do things in a unique way where they're very simple, but they're not necessarily obvious if you're not sitting there with us. So, a lot of our customer service side, I would say 9 out of 10 is people not reading instructions, and it's usually solved quickly. And usually we have a loyalist for life. Yeah, the funniest one we had, like a warranty thing. We've only had a couple. I mean, I think we're over, tens and tens of thousands of AK mags sold of our mid tier. So we have 3 different levels, if you will, of durability with our AK mags. We have the OEM 47 all plastic. That's for range use, still stronger feed lips than our competition like Magpul and US Palm, etc., even with the steel that they have in their mags. And then our mid tier, which is our Mag 47, which has the steel liner. That's the one Tim Harmson of Military Arms famously broke a brick trying to break when I asked him to try and break them. And then we have our premium ones. And a customer had bought a 10-pack of our mid tier. That was the first one that came out, the Mag 47. And he calls me up about a year later and he goes, hey, I want to buy another 2 10-packs. And he's one of those guys, he's spending some dollars. He likes to call in, doesn't trust the internet, thinks giving me a credit card over the phone is more secure, but it is what it is, man. Nice guy. And when he's talking, he's like, yeah, I broke one of your mags. And I go, okay, well, I lifetime warranty, man. I got you. He's like, no, man, I'm 350 pounds. I was coyote hunting, and, you can picture Fat Boy running, and I tripped over a stump and my mag was in my rifle, and I hit your mag and broke the rear lug. And I go, dude, that's a warranty. I got you. And he's like, why would you? And I'm like, lifetime warranty is lifetime warranty. Unless you're trying to clickbait and hurt us with some silly, like, lawnmower test. If you're using our product, and I don't care if it, backpack falls out of a helicopter with 20 mags in it, we got you if it breaks. So that's just, our MO with it. So, yeah, you definitely see weird stuff, especially now that we have so many cheap guns out there, and sometimes you're just chasing it. My favorite customers, though, are the ones that are willing to work with us because, when they talk to us, most people understand that we're coming from a place of we want to know, because if we can get better and it's something we need to get better on, we want to get better. And sometimes you get those customers that just, and we deal with it in the industry where, homie hits me up and he's like, your stuff doesn't work. Well, it turns out he never bought the gun, and he's just trying to get me to let him return it. And I don't understand that. I mean, it blows my mind how, we probably get 50 people a year that are like, I need to return this. I didn't end up buying the gun. I'm like, why is that? A, it's like a $20 to $40 product. Just figure it out, give it to a buddy. I wouldn't do that. B, why are
Yeah,
you buying the stuff before you bought the gun? I don't know, but people are weird.
yeah. That's
So,
I don't know. That reminds me of like this. It was a stupid GIF I saw in there, or GIF, or however you say it. I prefer GIF, but that's me.
yeah.
Um, it was like it was an anime cartoon where I guess they ran out of rounds in the gun. Right, it's a handgun. So instead of dropping the magazine, they took the handgun off and threw it, and then put a new handgun on the magazine. It's kind of like the same logic. Like, why would you?
I don't,
It,
but I mean, on the flip side, I understand like some, it's not uncommon that I'll get like an angry toned email from someone, right? And there's probably one a week. And I also emphasize that, I mean, customer service in our industry is pathetic. I mean, I'm sure I know there's a lot of companies that will never answer the phone, never respond to emails, and you just give up. And that's kind of the norm in this space, unfortunately, right? And
yeah,
I can go into my theory as to why, but that might be a topic for another day. But you know, the general tonage is like you almost have to cry out in that first email you think to get attention. They don't know that we're real dudes doing the best we possibly can and that we care and we put our names on the products. And so I don't take it personal, but there's some days where it's hard not to, especially you got a scenario where someone reaches out and I know they didn't read the instructions. I know they're exaggerating what they tested or didn't test, and you're just like, hey man, let's be on the same team and try and solve it. But I also understand that we're probably one of 10% of companies in the gun industry that will even respond to customer service emails within days. There's been companies I've tried to reach over the years. I mean, I'll knock one company right now because I'm still upset about it. Is Benchmade. Man, I bought a $250 Benchmade knife. The first day I used it, the pocket clip bent completely out, just going in my jeans. And I tried reaching them for like 2 months and nothing. And I'm like, so Benchmade, you need to figure it out, man. I mean, that's pathetic.
wow.
So now I've just moved on and I won't buy another Benchmade product. But I mean, that's unfortunately the norm in this space. So I try not to take it personal, but when you own it, it's hard sometimes not to, right? So
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that. And I do also haven't worked in the customer service field myself. I do also believe that the whole adage of the customer always being right also means that the customer has to act right as well. So I can understand then on one hand, it's like you think I'm gonna get a bot or AI machine or whatever, but on the other hand, when you actually do get actual blood and flesh and whatnot representative, you've already set a tone for that. So, as they say, you catch more flies than honey.
yeah, no,
Don't
it's hard. I mean, recently we had our first ever 1-star Google review, and a guy filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. And I'm just like, and it was really a disappointing story. And it's just one of those where if the dude reached out, nothing, he would have had a good experience. It's all good. And he ended up cracking his FN SCAR lower receiver. And it's just a series of circumstance, if you will. But I'm just like, man, if you reached out, you'd love our product, you'd be thrilled, everyone would be happy. But instead, you chose the path you chose, and it's disappointing, but it is what it is. But people are people, but I love this industry as a whole. I love the customers. I love, to me, there's just such a good, our core customers is they might have served in the military. They might be in the military. They might be a SWAT guy, but our guys that we're building products for and women are just someone that looks in the mirror and goes, part of why I have a heartbeat is to keep those around me, their hearts beating. And to me, there's just a commonality there, that there's a connection point that is stronger with a stranger than anything else I can think of. That love for other humans and that innate instinctual responsibility that it's your job. It's on you. You're ready to take a bullet, but you're not just ready to take a bullet. You're ready to send out bullets there to keep yourself alive so you can be in a position to take that next bullet for them, And so it's just that mindset of preparedness and that mindset of responsibility that I think it's just so easy to connect on. We don't have to have anything else in common, and I can enjoy an hour with someone just connecting there. So
Yeah, just as long as they send those bullets out without wearing a paper mache plate carrier like I've got, they should be okay.
Yeah.
But so another question for you. Especially seeing as how they recently said that we are going to get a American version of the G36. It's going to be called the C36. So I think they're going to have to do like it's going to be based on a platform, but they're going to have to do all new internals and basically, in a sense, make it its own firearm. That being said, is there any top secret tech that you have coming up that you might be able to share? You think the C36 project might be something you'd be interested in?
I, I think it's cool. And I'm excited for it as a consumer. For us, the bulk of what we do, an inexpensive project for us, starts at the cost of a truck. And so it really comes down to how the market reacts to it, what people think they need from it. I do have some fatigue, if you will, around the topic of HK. We spent a lot of time, energy, money there, and it really didn't, the partnership that we positioned to have with HK didn't materialize as a partnership. It was more of a one-way street. And so
Mm.
I'm not overly excited to spend a lot of money to then have HK copy us. I mean, it's not a secret, and you can find this publicly through just press release history. They came to me, HK did at the time, HK US, and asked me to make the magazines because of my background in manufacturing. They knew they
Right.
couldn't keep up with P30 VP9 production. And then, so we made those, and then we figured out how to get them from 15 rounds to 17. And then HK said that prior to that, it couldn't be done. And then they copied us. We made a 20 round mag, and then they made a 20 round mag. And they wanted us to keep doing other stuff. And I'm like, look, we've got to have a way that we can both coexist for this to work, and so, and I'm not trying to beat up anyone in particular that works there. It's just more, Glock, for example, embraces the aftermarket. And there's other companies that kind of go, wait a minute, I want that dollar, right on every little widget. And then there's people that fall in the middle. So, I think it's always exciting for consumers with, a lot of people knock Glock for not innovating, but I also argue that the reason Glock's been so successful with quality and reliability is because of their lack of innovation. You know, um, there's certain companies out here that, they might have their warehouse build in an AK one day and an AR the next day and a MP5 clone the next day and a handgun the next day. And, those people are doing something different. And so they can't be an expert on all things and notice those little tiny differences in parts. Like, the Glock employees, they're making the same thing every day, and so, and they don't go after their aftermarket. They don't compete with their aftermarket. I even know a handful of high up Glock people that are thrilled to see us making magazines. They're like, cool, you're going to give more options to consumers. We know what you stand for. You're going to give us some extended magazines that us as Glock have decided not to do. So it's not been adversarial at all. It's been, heck yeah, let's go, and so that posture allows us to feel good about making those investments. So to answer your question, it's just down to, is it something we can protect against getting knocked off on? And is it a big enough market to be excited about?
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Because I can
I guess
never beat an H&K as an X Tech. You know what I mean? Like everyone's going to start with, I got to be a better price. I got to be a better product. Like if I have that, we both has the same thing, they're always going to win because they're the factory. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. Right.
yeah, it makes sense. But I guess along with that mentality, what are the challenges in product development does your company face?
Yeah. I mean,
Or
capital is a huge one, right? I mean, dollar bills, right, is a huge deal, and we've kept it where no one owns us, and but yeah, I mean, you're talking, just behind me in plastic parts, the molds with that, you're into the millions of dollars, and so it's really, to continue growing, that money's definitely a challenge in this industry where 9 out of 10 folks on Wall Street don't want to touch a company like ours, even though we don't sell guns. It is for political reasons historically. So I do feel that with what's happening politically now, that might, there's going to be more guys swaying, oh, it's not so bad, right? And so we've already seen that with a lot of the temperature of the country shifting, right? And so I think that will that will free some stuff up. And then, it's really, from there, having visibility of where things are headed and where they're going. There's certain companies that you will see X-Tech product from in the next year, to support different lines that you haven't yet. But those companies have come to us and said, hey, we love what you're doing. We want to work with you. We want you to fill in some blanks that we really don't want to deal with, or we can't, or we need your patents or whatever. And so, and those guys are coming to us going, hey, this is what we're doing now. This is what we're moving towards, and giving us that visibility. So that helps a lot. But yeah, definitely knowing where things are headed, is a challenge. So much of this industry is about timing for success stories, whether that's politically charged with surge buys, or whether that's gun popularity. I mean, our biggest win in the last 3 years happened when the 365 hit the California roster. That was a product line that we launched pretty late in the game, for our extensions, on the 365. And I think we were out like 3 years after the pistol. That was solving a problem that had never been solved, being able to extend a magazine where the bottom rails go inward. So how do you make an extension for that? So it took us a year longer than we had scheduled, and we spent a lot more money than we had scheduled. But then when that gun hit the California roster, we made a +0 version, and that really funded last year's development cost. I mean, it was like, boom. And you're going, we didn't expect our number one selling SKU to be a +0 magazine extension for the 365. And, and then now, timing wise, now these other guns have hit the California roster. We've seen a huge surge out there once a micro stamping case was won. And so now that gun's, we're still doing well with that line, but it's not what it was, and now that guys in Cali can choose from, 7 different micro compact, pistols, it's not all 365 sales like it was. So yeah, it's definitely crystal ball timing's a challenge. And then, distribution has always been a challenge, especially in the market post COVID, where, there's still a lot of large companies that are sitting on inventory of stuff they never should have bought, just because they just bought whatever they could get their hands on. And so, what typically would be, when I say typical, pre-COVID, even during the Trump slump, an initial order from a large distributor, let's say back then it would have been $150,000. Now those orders are $10,000, $15,000. So there's no overnight windfalls like there were. So yeah, definitely a lot of challenges there. And so you got to treat it like a marathon. You really do. As I tell people now, to start a business in the space we're in, you either have to be independently wealthy before you start it, or clinically insane. So I fit the latter there. So, but yeah, we've always been very conservative when it comes to, finances, and we've watched a lot of companies maybe sprint past us in sales, but then they end up in bankruptcy or lost to it. And so to us, it's been build that solid foundation and grow off it and have kind of sustainable growth. So, but yeah, I mean, we love making stuff, man. I mean, it was, if we ever found the right fit that was really, we could vet as in alignment with our core values on the capital side, I mean, what we would do in a hurry would be pretty monumental. I've got a backlog of about 70 projects I want to do. But if a cheap project's 30 grand, that's a lot of money, right? So, something like our AK mag, you're talking, $300,000, so a lot of this stuff can get, up there in a hurry. But, it's definitely not an easy space, but I enjoy it. I mean, it's hard and it's painful, but I'm one of those people that enjoys pain. So here we are.
Yeah, the inner geek in me is channeling Lord of the Rings over here. I'm thinking of Saruman. It's like, you have elected the way of pain.
100%. I mean, I was always an athlete. I still, goof around and participate a little bit, but you have to love pain. And if you don't, there's nothing, it's not like I'm better than someone or someone's better than me. It's just like, we're all wired differently. Right. And in this space in particular, if you want to build something from scratch, you've got to have a love for pain, and the example, the guy that always has fascinated me is Mike Knoll, who founded Blackhawk back in the day. And Mike was a former team guy and just had that innate love for pain. And he built, something that's very reminiscent of what I'm trying to build here. And what it became. And since after Vista took over, it's kind of, it wasn't what it was, but what he built up until that point was pretty incredible out of a garage, so hopefully our stories end up similar.
I mean, with a mentality like that, I think they will. You know, unless David Goggins enters the arena, then yeah, nobody's going to win. Nobody's going to win.
Well, honestly, I would be all about it. To me, there's more guys like that, right? I mean, if you're playing against, the JV team and you're going to play down to that level, hockey was always my main sport. And it's, I love playing against legitimate gung ho, especially on the product development, product quality side. This industry is known to have some infighting and silliness. And we've unfortunately been a part of that with some lawyers and all that. But, I welcome good competition. If someone goes out and through the proper methods of developing products like we do, where you're not knocking people off, you're just developing your own technologies or way of doing it, and they make a better product. To me, it's hats off to you, good job. And that just ups the game for all of us. And who wins in that the most is your listeners, is the consumer. And that's really what we all want, is as consumers, we want the best products possible at the best price possible. And so, David Goggins enters our field. I'm all here for it, man. I'll learn something from it. He'll probably kick my butt on some stuff, and hopefully I'll get a win or two out of it too. And so, yeah, I welcome more of that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense with the whole iron sharpens iron mentality. And honestly, speaking of politics and everything, or, to touch on that topic a little bit, I don't think we've had too much iron being sharpened. I mean, it's just as far as trying to move forward with certain things and get things going, it's just been kind of stagnant and participation trophy, So it's like if everybody's getting the same prize, then nobody's going to want to try and do anything harder or improve on anything. So yeah, I definitely agree with that mentality, and I really hope, especially with what is it, Cash Patel is acting director of ATF.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna see how that's gonna work out. I know everybody wanted Brandon Herrera. I guess we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah. No, I mean, I respect what Brandon was attempting there. I mean, I do think Cash, from a resume standpoint, I think Brandon would even agree, is pretty exciting fit there. And I'm a big fan of efficiency. I've called myself a libertarian for years. I feel like the definition of libertarian shifted dramatically in the last 5 years from its core. I go back to, at the time in the late 1700s, what was a libertarian? To me, it's like, don't bring harm to others. Don't hurt the innocent. What you choose behind closed doors is not harming others. Cool. Low taxation, small government's more effective. Take less money out of my revenue, and I can do more to help those around me. And I can make better decisions than any bureaucracy can about, things like welfare and helping others and stepping in as a society to help others. But so I'm really excited about what Doge is doing. And, it's almost like now it's like our meter, I feel like, is more like the more whining you see out of the Google of the world and CNNs of the world. So more is like, okay, cool, we're doing the right thing. The louder they squawk, the more I believe in the decisions. But, everyone's got their own motives, but I do like the efficiency model. And at the same time, I do personally know people that have been impacted by some of these changes of, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows. But I think it's needed. I mean, there needs to be pain before gain. And yeah, I mean, I want my tax dollars to do as much as possible. If they're going to take them, I want them to use them wisely. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but there's a lot of layering that's just gone. And I'd love to see the ATF work with Congress to get rid of these state organizations like the California DOJ completely. My viewpoint is that it's completely unconstitutional to take away constitutionally granted rights from American civilians. No state should have that ability to do that. So to me, that would be, if I could pick one thing. A lot of guys go after the NFA and say machine guns, and so I'm like, cool, I'm here for it. And if let's just start with, if you live in New York, you can go buy a gun. Start with California, you don't need a background check for ammo. Let's start with, if you serve in the military, or in general, you should have to be 21. If you're getting deployed for our country, and you're telling me that 18, 19-year-old kid that's getting deployed and fighting wars for our country can't own a handgun, without having to do some loophole weirdness, someone buys it from them, which is technically a felony, but can be gifted. And, that's just silly. I want, if you're a soldier in our nation and you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and you want to go train and become a more dialed shooter and be more efficient, and I want you to come back alive, and I want you to, stop those that are trying to bring harm against us. So that to me is just, there's so much silliness. Let's start with the extreme silliness, is my vote with it. Again, I'm not saying I'm for the MFA at all. I'm just going, let's start with, a third of our country that are gun owners live in states with unconstitutional restrictions. Let's start with getting rid of those.
Yeah. And especially in the case of New York, because I mean, even if you do a background check, somebody at least has to be willing to go ahead and push forward the whole process instead of just sitting on it. Because there's been recorded victims that actually needed firearms up there because they had somebody stalking them or they feared for their life. And by the time they're like, okay, cool, stamp of approval, it's going to a person who's deceased or no longer here anymore.
Yep.
And it's the whole stigma of like firearm bad, people with firearms bad, and it's a new era now, and it's got to stop because gun culture has grown to the point where you're seeing it in everyday media. It's not just in movies. It's not just in music. You're seeing even whenever somebody's trying to stand up and take a stance against firearms, you're seeing it. There was somebody who, some celebrity, I can't remember her name. I just remember the picture where she melted down a bunch of, I think, ARs to make a sword. Now, I don't know what stance she was trying to take or what message she was trying to send, but to melt down some firearms to make another weapon. Okay, thanks for the notoriety or thanks for the knowledge. But, long story short, it's there. And even people like to have their firearms personalized. So in a sense, it's almost like it's a part of their it's a part of their life. It's gun culture. And whether politicians want to accept it or not, it's here. Now,
Mhm.
I can understand also certain background checks on like 18, 19-year-olds because for the most part, if anybody's going out there to legally purchase a firearm, I could be wrong, could be right, but I don't think they have the intent to do any wrongdoing, especially if they have that gung ho mindset of like, I got to protect my country versus like the people who have acquired firearms illegally and have
Yep.
done some crazy stuff, school shooters, gang members, so on and so forth. Um, that's why gun laws in general, at least towards civilians, they don't make too much sense. Like you're telling me I can't have a Glock switch, but yet this guy over here who's a criminal who's got two Glocks, both of them have extended magazines and switches on them, is going to be like, oh no, I can't have this. And he's going to take both switches off. But let's be real. If they're already breaking the laws don't really matter to
Yeah, I mean, and again, like this, switches, things like that. I think that's kind of like, I would call it like the category two in my head if I was leading the charge, of getting rights back. It just start with every American that is not a violent criminal, right?
me.
And as a civilian of this country, has the right as an adult to purchase a firearm. No ifs, ands, or buts. Background checks, I'm here for it. You know, things like some of the more meaningful conversations I've had over the years is I come from a background in different spaces, and there's a lot of the wealth around me. People I know with money aren't come from a different mindset. They mainly are Democrats, um, and I've had a lot of fruitful conversations over the year. And it usually starts with like, well, aren't you in favor of red flag laws? And I said, well, okay, let's walk through a scenario of how, like, the idea of not letting bad people have a gun. I'm here for it. Right. If we could play Minority Report and see the future with, obviously that movie exposed itself. Right. But no one
Yep.
wants bad guys to have guns. But it's that acceptance of, let's walk through where there's not unintended consequences and not ability for abuse. Because, scorned human, friend, employee, employer, coworker, loved one, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. They call in and make up some story, and then it starts with you're guilty until proven innocent. And that, tell me how that works. There's just no way to execute that in a way that makes sense. And so, that's and again, like, we all, to me, as that father, as that husband, I don't want bad dudes having guns, but you're just, that's not a thing, right? I don't care where you are in the world, that happens, right? So, um,
Yeah.
and and so we see that in Chicago, we see that in New York City. I mean, where we have some of the strictest gun laws. A lot of these crimes are committed with products that were obtained illegally and are illegal in that state. So laws don't solve the problem. And I think if we accept it as society, of guns as a means to being a father, being a husband, being a mom, being a wife, people will be less, release that stigma of we're the fringe and say we're the mainstream. Then I think people will get out and train more. They're not looking over their shoulder like, oh, I hope Bobby doesn't see me at the gun range because they know my car. And it's more acceptable to have these conversations and to educate kids in school about gun safety. I know Kevin, what's Kevin's last name? Kevin does a lot of that. I sponsor some like basketball charity thing around SHOT Show, but he's big into educating. He goes into low income areas and focuses on firearms education, because his mindset is we know these kids are going to be exposed to firearms by the time they're 12 years old. So instead of pretending that's not going to happen, let's get in front of it and show them how to handle firearms properly, show them what to do when that happens, not if that happens. And I think the more culture we'll talk about, I think the better, the less accidental discharges we're going to have, the less issues we have, and as a parent too, on the flip side, it's your responsibility to keep, those guns away from your kids. Right. And not, I'm not saying like, my stepdaughter, I had her, I had her trained on airsoft pistols and learning what a hot range was and safe direction by the time she was like 10 years old. And I'm not saying keep them away from your kids. I'm saying don't give them unsupervised access to them. Right. I'm all for kids shooting in a supervised, safe environment and teaching them to respect a gun, not fear a gun. But, on the flip side, a lot of these school shootings and stuff are stemmed from, kids being getting these guns from their parents without their parents even knowing. And, that's something that, my wife and I were expecting a daughter next month, and we were just, kind of chatting through it. And I'm like, the code to the safe is something that I know, she knows, and that's it. I don't, my kid's 17 and she's owns her own business by then, what she might, because my wife's also an entrepreneur, right? But there's still, no exception to that. The code to the safe is for mom and dad only.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, not you guys, I'm sorry, but I think that the whole school shooting thing can easily be prevented, or at least somewhat cut back on, if we just pay attention to the whole environment of what kids are going through in general. Because probably whenever you and I were going to high school, if we had beef with somebody, we would deal with it on the spot, and it would be localized. But now you've got kids that have access to social media at the age of, I don't know, let's say 2 at the earliest.
Right.
So they've got like a whole background of social media carbon footprint, if you will, to the point where they got their legacy account built up, and all of a sudden they get into middle school, high school, whatever. And it's not just, little Timmy hit me. It's little Timmy hit me. The fight was posted online. And on top of that, the fight made its way over to Japan or India or whatever. So like the whole world is seeing me get my, for lack of a better description, get my ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not a school shooting, which, we and I both are not justifying that, but if it's not a school shooting, then we got to deal with the more extreme consequence of that kid doing something that won't allow them to come back. So there just needs to be more focus on trying to prevent that, and more accountability as far as like, okay, he hit you, then we need to focus all the punishment on him, not, okay, both of y'all are taken away from the school for, I don't know, a week, a month, or whatever. It's just the whole soft consequences thing where both kids are wrong, or not even telling the other parents to take accountability for it or whatever. That's got to go. That's got to end, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, it just starts with, respect, have parents teaching the next generation respect. And if, I have empathy for those that don't have, traditional household and maybe lack certain parental figures. But, that's part of, I think as society, right? It's our job to step in and at times, mentor those around us and teach those people love and respect. And I don't think blind love and blind respect is something that I'm in favor of at all. I teach the opposite, but, come from a place of being kind and paying attention and being honest. And, I think recognizing, to me, instead of calling, then we just culturally shift like the definition of what is bullying to the point where you're just like, that's silly, but I think if we start with like making examples of those, like in schools, like there should be an award for someone that stuck their neck up to stand up for Jeremy because he was getting picked on. You know what I mean? Instead of blasting the negative, like, my style for from my team here at XTech is always, how can I support you? Anyone that works with us, whether you're a supplier or whether you're an employee or whoever your role is, every time my first conversations typically start each day with, what can I do to support you? And I think if we do that as a society, I'm not trying to glorify myself, but it more steps from, you know, setting examples of those that are abnormal in school and are showing that bravery because they are have that good foundation from their parents of standing up for those people. Let's bring some attention to that versus call things bullying that aren't bullying, and just, you know, focus on the negative of, you know. So to me, it's like, let's bring more attention, and I would love schools to start recognizing that of, you know, Billy, you know, stood up for, you know, this year we're giving an award because, you know, Billy was kind of like, I don't know what, you know, the guy that was brave and stood in front of it and brought it to attention if needed of the school. But, you know, kind of just recognizing that, because I think that's the difference, right? And bridging that, because everyone has a why, you know, everyone has, you know, typically bullies are someone that got bullied, right? Like there's always a why. And, you know, it's just a healthy person accepts that why and seeks to solve it. And we're not always on our A game as humans. We're flawed. And but if we can draw that empathy, and empathy doesn't mean tolerance for anything, it just means seeking understanding, you know.
Yeah, we definitely need more of that. I definitely agree.
But the media, I think, is the worst for it, right? So anyway, they kind of create that whole no one's supposed to be friends.
The fourth branch of government, yeah.
Yeah.
um, onto a more lighter subject.
Sure.
um, so personally, since you're speaking about firearms and safes, what is your firearm setup that you personally enjoy using, and what X-Tech products do you utilize on that platform?
Yeah, so everyday carry for me has been some version of the 365 for some time. We've had a lot of success on that platform. So I think I've got one handy here. Can I show a gun, or where are we at with that?
Yeah, I'll probably just take that out and post it because I'm gonna
Okay.
post my YouTube, but you
All
know.
right. So morning, it's coming in, right? So, but yeah, so we make the +3 grip extensions for the 365. So versus going to like
Like,
an XL, now you stick this in, and if you're in Cali, it doesn't add any rounds, restricted states, but if you're in a free state, it adds 3 rounds. So it gives you the perfect grip on the gun. So, and we're working on some other products around that. And so we make magazine sleeves now for the 17 rounders. You can even use it on the 21. So now if you want 21 rounds in your little micro compact, you can have it, or the XL. So that's kind of my go-to for there. I mean, home defense and on the road. So, you know, typically in the summer I commute up to the Pacific Northwest. So my road rifle, and the one my go is always an AK. And you know, methodology there is I've got a lot of friends that, you know, train in different environments, had a lot of deployments, and you know, I live in the desert, and so the difference between functionality and reliability of the AR platform versus AK is significant. And so you know, I don't see a scenario where the world ends and I'm in the role of you know, making shots beyond half a football field at most, you know, 50 yards, right? It's hard to justify a shooting beyond that. Even that far is not traditionally a justified shooting. So really reliability is what I'm after. And so, and then of course I use my AK mags, and, you know, mag 47 and the elites, which have the solid steel rear lug. Yeah, I mean, I've got my road trip get up is kind of my VP9 for a full size pistol still. Even though I said what I said about HK, I'm still an HK fanboy. So G36 is something I got to pay attention to for my own use. But I just think I'm a lefty, so the controls on the VP9 are, in my mind, second to none as a left-handed shooter. Just very intuitive. You don't have to think about it. It's not one side stronger than the other when it comes to the slide release or mag release. It just I like that setup a lot as a left-handed shooter. And then we've got our extensions there. I still run our mags. We've discontinued the magazines there, but I still got our setup there. So yeah, and then 10 mags for everything. As a magazine guy, I got to have 10 mags for every gun with me at all times. It's kind of how I think. So I don't carry 10 mags, to be clear, but you know, carry setups usually the one in the gun and then a backup. But yeah, that's kind of the big thing. So we all carry some version of our stuff. I've got a Glock 17. I'm planning on tricking out with some different things. I just haven't gotten to become a Glock guy yet. I have shot in Glocks more in the last 2 years than I have my entire life. Really, I came from that school of thought of that grip angle. I hate it. Now I'm kind of I'm learning. I'm learning. It's just like anything. It's kind of like shooting the red dot. You draw enough and you're not fighting your natural sight alignment. It takes repetition. So
Yeah. I recently bought a Ruger RXM, and before that I had a Glock. Was it a Glock 20? That's the 40 Smith and Wesson.
23,
23. Thank you.
19.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a 19 size. Yeah.
yeah. I'm usually like a Canik guy, so like you move me over to the Glock world. I'm like, yeah, I got a Glock 372 to
Yeah.
17.
Yeah. No, it's tricky to remember all those, man. It's I still can't. I'm really good with numbers, but that's there's no logic to the Glock numbers. You can tell there's times where they use logic, but it's not universally used. So um,
Yeah,
it's tricky to recall it all. But yeah, no, I enjoy using our products. I mean, I think that to me that it's always humbling when you have people that you respect that choose to carry products we manufacture. And so we've had the luxury of having a lot of that. And as we go to gun shops, one thing we do that's novel is, so if any dealers are listening, we have an awesome dealer program. But one of the things we almost insist on is getting the guys behind the counter running our stuff. And I typically will donate that product because I love working with dealers and gun shop owners that are oftentimes either smaller shops. They're not the biggest ones per se that are our favorites, if you will. And we give them special treatment. But, I love those shops that care about what they sell.
yeah,
And to
yeah.
me, there's a difference in a shop that just sells things and a shop that goes, my name is essentially represented with every product on my shelves. And those are the guys I really connect with. And so for those shops, if the guys on the counter running our stuff, it's always fun. So when I tour and, there's 6 guys behind the counter and all 6 guys are like, oh, I've got your blank. It's like that's such a blessing and such a fun experience.
Honestly, that's how it should be, because like that's one reason why I love Otis Tech products.
Mhm.
Um, I was using the competitors for a long time, but switching over to Otis Tech, I mean that's all I want because it's quality, and then the ripcord system is a lot better because when I'm using the bore snake, if it gets snagged up a little bit, sometimes the material feels like it's gonna rip or something. Then I got to figure out, okay, how am I gonna get this out of my chamber here, or my barrel? But ripcord, nah, it's one and done. Keep it
I dig
pushing,
it. I dig it. Yeah, I've got a couple other things. I don't have much, but yeah, I mean, any company that has a pulse, and that
Yes,
I think
yes,
is I enjoy, especially when the pulse isn't our customers are dumb and not going to use our stuff. When the pulse is like we want to make good things and at a properly marketed. I have no problem with people making and selling $6 AR magazines as long as they're not pretending there's something they're not.
yeah,
I don't call it the world's best blank or world's most advanced blank when it's not. I mean, uh, our country allows marketing like that. What's funny now is Amazon does not, so it's kind of funny in that regard. So I think we'll have a
cool.
shift there. But if you can't prove it, you can't say it on Amazon. Which there's a part of me that kind of goes both ways on that, right? Of saying how you can market something. There, it's good to put some guardrails on it, but you know, all to be said. There's a place for everything in the world. It's just wrongly marketed products is where I kind of have a moral challenge with.
It makes sense. But that karma eventually catches up because if you're selling paper mache AR mags, then the internet's going to tear you a new one. So yeah,
Yeah,
good
I
luck
mean,
with that.
yeah, to an extent, really. I mean, there's because of how this industry is built, with it's so hard to get established, and then once you're established, it's hard to lose it. Um, you know, the average gun person is not listening to podcasts. They're not on Instagram. They're not on Facebook. They're not in gun forums. They might be on those platforms, but
True.
not in the gun community. And
Mhm.
you know, they may just go, hey, I need 4 mags, and just go buy those 4 mags and never use them, and then they need them and they don't work. So to me, that's where it doesn't always catch up, because there is truth to most people don't shoot, and
Yeah, true.
I'm not supporting that, but I also, in my mind, just because my customer doesn't shoot doesn't mean it's okay if my product doesn't work. Right. So and to
Yeah,
go back to your first return question, we still preach to this day, anyone I talk to is, I don't care if you bought 10 mags from me or 50 mags from me, each magazine you get or extension kit you get, go test that before it becomes part of your kit. That methodology is something I'm a big believer in, because weird things can happen, so just, and that's why I let our magazines usually be marked. And so just because one work doesn't mean all will work, and they should. But I just think as a gun culture, we need to be spreading that messaging of, don't assume that because if you need to use it, you don't have a chance for round two. So
Right. Yeah. And that's why I tell everybody about G2 research. You're gonna leave that one alone.
yeah,
I
that's a
refuse.
weird one. Yeah.
Anyway, next question.
That's I mean, I don't know, novelty in the definition of ammo. I think you can chalk it up as that, right?
Yeah, I ended up getting a bunch of the Telos rounds, and I tried to fire them through my Ruger PC charger, and I got also the Ruger carbine, PC carbine. Jam City, stovepipes everywhere, man. It looked like a small town because there was that many stovepipes just sticking up the entire time.
Brutal.
Yeah, fun times. Uh, here's a good one for you. If you had a Tony Stark budget,
Okay.
okay, what and you could design any firearm accessory that you could think of or, could concoct or just imagine, what would you design? Tony Stark budget. I mean, like you got the holograms that come up and display. I mean, you're like you're
Yeah.
Iron Man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely an innovator, but I don't have that like, hologram world. That's a world I don't know. Right. But there's a technology I'd bring back and in its next form that I've been sitting on. We sold a product called a smart laser. So I would definitely bring that back in where it should have been and where it will be. We killed it because we had over a 1% return rate, which to me, it wasn't acceptable. And we couldn't appropriately define if something was going to be good or bad in realistic testing. So we killed that project. So I bring that back. If anyone looks up Smart Laser X-Tac, you'll see kind of what that was around. But it's been sensor activated, instantly intuitive activated light laser for home defense. On when you want it on, not when you don't. But so I'd bring that back to where it should have been, and add some additional technologies to that. And then with sensors and controls, I have some really cool concepts that we may have a path to bring to market end of 2026, kind of beginning of 2027. And that would be for rifle controls. Right now, I think you look at, the modern Army rifle, whatever they call that thing, it's just a bunch of cords all over the place and it's kind of a jangly mess. And so making something really streamlined, but you could still, jump with a rebreather and be underwater for 2 hours and know it's going to work. So you could do a lot of things with that technology around there. And then, making the world's the AR M4 magazine that the world deserves is something that we've had up our sleeve for a while. There's some technology around that we need to develop to the next level. So I'm kind of focused right now on, kind of hitting the solid, what I know is going to be a single, if that makes sense. The projects that we can spend 6 figures on or less and just kind of continue growing it until we get well established. But yeah, if I had the untapped budget, I would have mix that into a blend of swing for the fences with the with hitting the singles, if that makes sense. So yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, I would be really excited about what I know we could do with the smart laser if we brought that back. And I've already identified the gaps it had and how to solve them. It's just it's probably close to $1 million wouldn't be crazy to spend on what I want to do with that. So that's just kind of where that's not the highest priority now, and it's not in our core of our business. So marketing, you have to do more things with it too. But that would be a really cool project. I just think everyone would have a reason to buy one, whether for themselves or for their loved ones. For me, I would buy one for my wife because she hasn't had an opportunity to train like she wants to. But it just takes you, the pistol red dot world, the industry kind of makes you think it's an easy button. And it's not. It's not. I mean, I fought the red dots. I'm resistant to change. Apple just forced me to do another update. I want to kill them for it. I'm that guy. And when I picked up a red dot for the first time, I'm like, this is horrible. Like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And gun guys didn't want to admit this, right? It was almost like you're a wimp or you're not, you're not lacking. Everyone just kind of pretended like red dots were this intuitive, like you put it on and you're good. And in reality, everyone's experience the red dots are the same, where especially if you're someone who's shot tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of rounds on iron sights, you went from this was your world till you put a dot on, and now your world's this because you're trying to find the dang dot. The industry didn't present and say, hey, you need to do 5,000 reps to where the point where the world opens back up to you. Because if I'm in a gunfight and my world's this, I don't like my odds. There's stuff happening here, there, all around. You could end up shooting something you don't want to shoot, or someone, or you could miss a threat, and so, but this is an easy button. And I'm not marketing and saying, if we make this how I want to make it, you shouldn't train, but it also accepts that reality that most people don't train. And so, and it's a really easy tool to throw on an airsoft replica and use around the house and get proficient with. So I think that would be very impactful. The industry would knock me for it to an extent, because the industry, thinks lasers are for losers, if you will, right? But but making a difference in competency and confidence for that husband, that wife, that mother, that father, that really excites me, to bring that back. It's not necessarily the most tactical product, but it's most, I think, meeting that heartbeat of America where it's at, most pistols end up in a nightstand, right? Most guys who buy a pistol don't buy 10 mags. Most people that come to X-Tech's website aren't your average gun person. Your average gun owner buys a gun and they're done. They might inherit another gun in life, but they buy that gun, and what came in the box is what they have. Interesting study I saw a couple of years ago was that it was something down the lines of only 60% of handguns sold, that person buys a holster for. So if you look at the holsters sold in a year in America as estimates, it's more than guns, but that accounts for guys like you and me buying 5 holsters to figure out what we like,
right.
Or 1 or 2 because of different styles of how we might use that platform. But if you take that away, like there's 40% of Americans roughly. Again, I don't know how you'd know this exactly, but I'll believe this study, and because I've talked to enough people to know, but I think there's some truth to it. But 4 out of 10 people who buy a pistol never buy a holster for it. So what does that tell you? That tells you it ends up in a nightstand. It's for home defense, right?
Yeah.
It's something happened where they had some event in their life happen around them or to them where they're like, we need to own a gun now. But is that person doing anything more than maybe going to a CCW class? Probably not. And so if you can meet that person where they're at and give them a better tool to have a better chance to, do what they bought that gun for, I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, you got to get past that Dunning-Kruger effect. It's like, if I've got something that can protect me, I'm good to go. And a lot more to it. That's especially if it's somebody that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is but to me, it's like building steps, right? Because if we have that product how I want to have it, and it does all the things I want it to do, and then that person goes, is training with in an appropriate way at home, and gaining confidence, something might trigger in their head, right? Now they're confident, they're not scared to go out there and train. So I do think it may not be everyone, but even if it's 10% of those people in that bucket that just own a gun and put it in their nightstand or put it in a safe by the bed, and they're not confident with it, if it can increase their confidence, increases their odds of success, it increases that normalization of gun ownership. So I think it actually has a pretty big cultural impact that product could make. And that's where I go back to, if we can better empower mom and dad, husband and wife, that's the core of our business. So that's kind of what excites me about it.
Makes sense. Plus on top of that, it's more responsible gun ownership, which goes against the narrative of what the media tries to portray. So that's always a plus too. Shoot, Jeremy, I know it's been an hour, man, and I know you got stuff to do, and I could probably continue on more and more, but I really enjoyed this conversation, man.
Yeah, we'll have to come back around and get together again. As I did with Aaron, every time I go on a podcast, you can pick out the rules, but we'll contribute $50 to worth of our stuff to give away to someone you choose what a winner is. Just get me the details, and it's our way of saying thank you for letting us on and spreading the word we exist. And again, it's your rule. So if someone doesn't like who won, that's not on me. So if you want to do it by a comment or however you want to do it, so just let me know whenever you pick a winner. And then we've got, options for pretty much every state now. So yeah, let me know, man.
Well, cool. I appreciate that. And honestly, man, I mean, I'm honored just to have you on here because I'm still small podcast dude. And I don't know if intimidation is the right word, but it's like, I'm dealing with big companies now. And I'm like, okay, ask meaningful questions. Don't ask anything stupid. What's your favorite color mag? You know?
Robin Banana Clip, man. Robin Banana Clip. Let's go. No, I mean, you did a great job. And so, yeah, no, we're here to support. And yeah, if you get a chance to go to GunCon this year, I think John's going to be announcing more details on that in a couple weeks. But GunCon's, I think, a great place to go kind of get connected. And, I think it's the best event in the industry for connecting influencers that want to get more involved and grow their network. That's where Aaron and I met. And also, companies that want to work with folks like yourself. So I would say the one do not miss, more than SHOT Show, more than NRA. If you can go to GunCon, that will take you that next step of getting connected.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely look into that too. And before you leave, man, where can everybody just look up your products, follow you on social media, all the important stuff as far as keeping in touch with you?
Yeah. So all our handles are XTech Tactical. So it's XTECH Tactical. Website's xtechtactical.com. And then, yeah, we've got, a lot of our stuff now. Guys are trying to play catch up because we came out with so much, but, Optics Planet just added us. We got Gun Mag Warehouse added a bunch of our products, Brownells. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch, but Sportsman's Warehouse carries a handful of our stuff. They're growing with it. If you're out in Cali, you got Turner's. And then, yeah, check your, local FFLs. As I said, if you guys are listening or if you know anyone, local gun shop, if you can introduce us to them, we'd love that. And maybe send you a t-shirt or something if you help that happen. So, but yeah, that's kind of where we try not to hide, but we're not the household name yet. So we're still out there spreading the word.
Cool. Jeremy, I really appreciate it, man. And I hope you have a good day. Get some sleep and good luck with that baby.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Be safe.
All right, well,
thank you again.
You're welcome.
This the Black Powder Podcast, let's get it split. We got the wisdom hitting targets with a marksman precision. We're having fun in the booth, we're running gun for the truth. Every future black gun owner, we're spreading the news. We do it legal, we're moving regal and blessing the people. Some hopes for the culture, we keep it locked like guns in our holster.